This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
It sounds like one of the names they would have for a monarch. It's like Queen Javia the First, Black Radical Queer, among queer Negro women.
All the way from the A, you listen to my favorite lesbian on BRQ.
I'm on my black girl magic voodoo shit, with the bamboo earrings on some new shit. I'm new when this money asking who this bitch. I'm the bitch with the pussy with the judo grip.
Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole, aka your favorite lesbian, and you're listening to Black Radical Queer Podcast, our stories on our own terms. Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole. Welcome back to another episode of Black Radical Queer Podcast. I'm really excited about the guest I have today. You already know like how this whole process goes, so I always allow my guests to introduce themselves, and then we will get into our conversation. So I'll give her a moment to do that.
Hi, my name is Tormi Coleman. I am the owner and the CEO of PS I Love Me. Is that good?
That's good. So I wanted to have Tormi on so that she could give you all a little bit more information about PS I Love Me, and also so that you all could just get to know her a little bit. So PS I Love Me is a clothing brand, and so you can go ahead and like go into the backstory, because I don't want to get any like dates or anything wrong. Like, when did you start it? What kind of motivated you? Which I think the inspiration behind the name of everything is beautiful. Okay. But y'all got to hear from her herself.
Okay. So PS I Love Me is a brand I started back way beyond when I was in college. I graduated college in 2012. So I did this a long time ago. It started off as me not liking the color of my skin. I hated being a dark-skinned woman. I wanted to be light-skinned. I wanted to be beautiful. I didn't feel like I was beautiful. So there was a time in my life where I literally want to cut my face up. I had a great friend at that point in time, and for about 3 weeks out of that time, I woke up with PS I Love Me all over my mirrors. No matter if I wiped it down, it stayed there. It was in pink lipstick. She left it there. It was a message. It was a message that I looked at it so many times, I started to believe in it. It was something that was pretty much true to myself. And I feel like there's so much hatred that's going on in the world now. PS I Love Me is a household name that everybody should know. Love comes from within. And if you don't love yourself, won't nobody else love you. So that's basically what I had to go through. It was a time in my life where I hated myself. It was a terrible time, but it helped me overcome just seeing PS I Love Me, just saying PS I Love Me, just saying I love me, no matter what nobody say. Like, somebody can say, Tormi, you ugly, you nappy headed. I don't care. PS, because I love me. Like, that's just right. How it made me feel, and I feel like the whole world should feel that way.
No, I do think that's important. I'm dark skinned too, so I definitely had those experiences of growing up being told that I would be prettier if I was light-skinned.
Yes. I hate that word. Oh, my God. I hate light-skin as a race, and I will beat you up.
I mean, it was like so many, little things like that, or just the nicknames that I would get called, or just all kinds of stuff. So I definitely understand that. And when you live in a world that tells you that, the way you look is not like what the standard is for beauty, then you have to constantly fight that message internally, because you're seeing all this imagery around you that's like, oh, well, you got to be light skin or white skin. You got to have long hair. You got to do this and the third. And I'm like, well, I'm dark skinned. I got natural hair. Like, I'm not small. I'm like the opposite.
Exactly. I feel you.
You have to really like go against that, for yourself. So, which I didn't even know when I did look into, read the backstory. I know that you mentioned like, oh, you didn't feel beautiful, but I didn't know why. So I'm glad that you, expanded on what it was. And then another thing that you mentioned was that, because of that, like you just really kind of went through like this depression. And I think that it's so important that we talk about mental health, because especially we're expected to just like be strong through everything and just push through. And like, you can't like take a break to kind of get yourself together. And we have to do that. And that's what that message, you seeing that message all the time was really another form of like you taking care of yourself. Like, okay, I have to, this is a mantra. I got to, remind myself.
I got to pick myself up for the world. Yep.
Right. So
exactly. This message is one of those messages that, and I feel like I went through a depression a little bit alone because no one knew it until my friend came into the room and was like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? So it was one of those things I had to go through it alone, but I didn't go through it alone, but I went through it alone. You get what I'm saying? Like,
right. Oh, I definitely understand.
Yeah. So that's my whole meaning for the message. Even if you are going through it alone, you always have P.S. I love me. Like, I'm here. I got you back. Like,
that's the thing about when you're, and I've talked about this like before, but when you go through like times of depression and stuff like that, they can feel even if you know that you're not by yourself technically, it's still very isolating. It's a very isolating thing to feel that way kind of in your own skin. So that's why it can feel very, very lonely. So it's like to be able to have this, self-love and to come out of that is, it's not the easiest thing, but it's definitely necessary to be able to do. So
yes, it's very necessary. And I feel like the connection with fashion and this persona, you have to be this certain way. And to be honest, a lot of people feel like because they're bigger, they can't look a certain way. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm 4'11", I'm a 00. I'm fighting standards too. Like I'm fighting double standards. Like I can't fit nothing in Fashion Nova, if you get what I'm saying. So it's like I don't have the boobs, I don't have the butt, I don't have the hips that these people are seeing on TV. So now we're fighting a whole nother standard outside of it's not just about being, skinny is beautiful or being big is ugly, because it's not. If you love who you are, no matter what you win, no one can make you feel differently about yourself. And that's kind of what I'm going through. Like, I'm 31 years old, and my friends are like, Tormi, like, why won't you go get this done? Why won't you go get that done? For what? Why? For what? I mean, I'm happy with who I am. God made me who I am for a reason, and I was taught to embrace it. And life is all about embracing things. And if you don't embrace things, you're going to always fall. And I feel like if you don't embrace what you have within this shell that God created for a reason, then it's going to be hard, but you have to embrace it. You have to embrace it first, and you have to love within, because if you love yourself, it's going to pour out to everyone else. Like, if you hate yourself, everyone around you is going to hate you. So if you love yourself, everybody around you is going to be like, yo, this girl, let's just love herself so much in a humble way. It makes me want to be around this person 9 times. Like, you're going to be a man magnet. You're going to be a female magnet. You're just going to be a person magnet, just naturally, because your energy is positive, because the love that you have within for yourself is coming from without. I mean, it's coming from out. I'm sorry.
I think it's important too to use fashion as a means of kind of like this message of accepting yourself and loving yourself, because what we wear says a lot about us, and what we wear can either like reinforce, like, let's say if you already feel good about yourself, then what you wear can just reinforce that. You can be like, oh, I feel really good in these clothes. But if you don't feel good about yourself, then the clothes can make you feel worse. Or even on those days where, like, I know for me, if I'm not feeling great, a lot of times I'm like, I dress up, because I'm like, okay, if I look good, it's going to help me feel better. But in those situations where I'm like, oh, I can't find the things that I want to wear, like to fit my body the way I want them to fit, then that's something that's discouraging. So it's good to be able to use fashion in a way to fit each person and to like make them feel good about themselves, which is what really caught my attention, because my introduction. So for listeners, because of course y'all will have no way of knowing this. So my introduction to P.S. I Love Me was through Amber, who I had on the podcast. And
girly girl.
What I liked is that because you styled her, and it's so many people, for one, who kind of like shy away from styling folks who are not small. And it's not like she's but I like how she looked good. The styling was good. I'm actually going to use one of her, like one of the pictures in like what you styled her in as like her image. But yeah, so it's like, to be able to be in something that you feel good and look good in, that fits her body well, that fits her style. And so that just shows that, you're really paying attention to what this person wants, what suits them, and also what fits them well. Because sometimes folks have some stuff and it's like, okay, this is not really fitted to this person. And so that stood out to me because I saw as she did her vlog, how good she felt like the whole time. Like, of course, just being in your presence, she's like, she's so cool. She's so cool, but also being styled. She was like, dang, I've never done this before. This is great. So to be able to provide that to someone, I think was, it was awesome to see, and to see this person who I've been following for a while, see them feel really, really good and confident and sexy and all that. You really can't beat it. And then for you to come through and kind of like bring what your talent is, but also just your personality. And you just like, okay, we're hanging out, we're chilling, grubbing, going out.
Exactly.
Person's image very seriously. And it's like, I feel like no one does that for us like we can do for ourselves. Like, I don't know. I think that it took a very specific, I feel like, okay, this hopefully this makes sense. So I feel like as a Black woman, you were in a better position to kind of do that for another Black woman. Like, okay, well, this is, kind of how I want her to walk away feeling, about
exactly.
herself. And so I think that it just creates a deeper connection than someone who's just going to look at you and be like, okay, let me just throw some clothes on you.
See, thank you, by the way. I'm honored with everything that you said. But when I look at fashion and I look at my clients, because I don't look at them as clients, we are friends. Once we sit down and we have a consultation and I get to know you, I'm in your life. I'm in your closet. I'm in your wardrobe. So literally, like, oh my God.
Open the closet door, you like holding out a shirt, like, okay, so this is what you should wear.
Oh, Amber will tell you, I'm with her now. Like, she'll call me, be like, as a friend, like, she'll call me like, hey girl, let's go out. I'm like, okay, what you wearing? Because we got to make sure everything's on point. I got this in the closet. We're going to do this. But it's not in a bad thing, because I feel like if you look good, you feel good. And if you feel good, it just helps you love who you are a little bit more. And from beginning to end, I look at every client as personal. So I ask them what you like and what you don't like. And basically, what makes you feel good? What in life makes you feel good? And they might say the beach. They might say, just hanging out with my friends. They might just say eating. So at that point, I know how to kind of channel their energy when it comes to clothing. Because a lot of people look at Amber came to me completely freaking out. Like, majority of my clients come to me like, oh my God, I don't know what to wear, and I'm not the size that I used to be, or I'm not the person that I used to be, or I want this image. And I'm like, what image do you want? And what makes you feel comfortable? People come to me and say, well, I want to look like this person. Why do you want to look like this person? Because that person looks like you. Yeah. And I said, okay, we can get you that look that's similar to them, but you can never look like that person because you are who you are. And I say that to them. You have to embrace who you are. And that's what I do from beginning to end. And I think with me, that what makes it's more personal. It's not about putting you in Versace, or it's not about putting you in designer clothes. It's about making you feel good in whatever you are. We can go to the thrift store with $10 and I can make you walk out there looking like Offset for the runway. I'm dead serious. It's just because it's how you feel. And whatever we put you in, if you love it, you love it. But your attitude states everything. And you got to go in there with a positive attitude. And you always got to love everything that you do. And if you give me a leeway, I'm going to make it fun. I'm not one of those people that, oh, you have to wear this because so-and-so is wearing this. No.
Right. Everyone's wearing this. Put this on.
No, if you don't like it, next. Okay, so let's go find what you like. I'm super easy to work with. I love what I do. I'm passionate, and I wouldn't put you in anything that I wouldn't put myself in.
Right.
I love colors. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, did you start that process with yourself? Like for example, one of the things that I used to do is photography. and still a little bit, but no, I used to be like into it really heavy. But before I started photographing other people, I did this whole thing of like self-portraits because I was like, I want to get an understanding of like the camera and, all that kind of stuff. And also just, I wanted to be able to speak to people from experience. So once I started really getting into it and doing photo shoots and all that kind of stuff, I wanted to be able to speak to models from the perspective of someone who had model. I mean, I had like for other people, but I also wanted to just kind of like be able to let them know like, hey, this is kind of what gets me in this headspace, or this is what works for me, so that they knew that I was approaching it from someone who understood as opposed to someone who's just telling them what to do. So did you start the process like with yourself, like, okay, well, let me figure out, basically let me style myself, like, in a very deliberate way, like, okay, what kind of things what kind of vibe am I going for today, or anything like that? Like, did you kind of treat yourself like your first client, basically?
Yes and no with a sense. I come from a household of 15 brothers and sisters, so my background is very deep. So I started off, like right now, I work for a custom men's clothing department. I design suits custom, and I also sell suits for men. It was kind of a lump in the road that I would never thought in my life I would ever have to sell suits for men. But when I started 6 years ago, my dad and my 7 brothers became my first test dummies. They
were like your
Literally.
mannequins.
They were like my mannequins. Like my dad would be like, I need a suit. Okay, don't worry about it. I'll go to work, put this down, put these colors together, text him, ask him what he don't like, what he do like. And then my customers started being my test dummies. And then I started taking pictures, and then people started saying, Tormi, I need you for my weddings. I need you to come in and do my closets. It was one of these niches that kind of went from me just doing suits to kind of me opening up a whole nother spectrum. And when it comes to the female world, everything I put on myself, I will put on you, basically. I will add anything you want to wear. It's doable. It's just how you style it, to be honest. Anybody can wear anything. And I learned that with working with men. They might say, no, a female can't wear this because of this. No, you can wear whatever you want to wear. It's just how you style it. Mm-hmm. We just have to put certain things in certain areas, place this here, here, here. It might not look how you perceived it, but if this person likes what they have on, we can make anything work. I'm dead serious. Fashion is all in how you make it. People literally go and study books on how I should do this, how I should do that. Yeah, there are books. Yeah, there are ways in fashion that people say high-end fashion should be. But to be honest, if you look at a lot of designers now, fashion is really what you make it. It's what you feel like look good together. Because Versace said that plaid and stripes look good together, everybody's about to put on plaids and stripes. Right. I'm dead serious. Just because Versace said it. Okay, so why can't I come out with plaid and stripe? Because P.S. I Love Me said it. Everybody should be wearing it because they feel good in it, no matter what it is. And that's how I kind of started my niche. I pretty much start within and work my way out. From every client, I'll start from within and work my way out. What makes you feel good? What colors make you feel good? That's basically how I started it. And then also I love the color wheel. I studied the color wheel in college. I went to the Art Institute and I had to paint, and I really thought I couldn't draw. But me painting and me learning the color wheel helped me when it comes to fashion and fabric and styling people, knowing what tones look good on different people, undertones, shades, tints, tertiary colors. Those things mean a lot of things when you're styling people. And I take that and I run with it.
Definitely. I mean, you have to have like that at least that foundational understanding. Okay, so you said, I want to backtrack a little bit. You said you went to our institute. So how did you get from East Coast? Because we talked a little bit about like, hey, we were both from the East Coast. So how did you get from the East Coast to here? Like, how long have you been here? What was that transition? Like, did you come here specifically to further, your fashion, or, how did that happen?
Okay. So I've been in LA since May of 2016. Yes. So I'm coming up almost on my 3-year mark this year coming up. I moved here from Baltimore, Maryland. I went to school in Arlington, Virginia. I moved out to LA. Excuse me. I moved out to LA because it was something that I felt like it was important for me. I felt like it would have been a leap of faith, and I felt like East Coast for my brand is not going to touch the world the same way if I was to start it in Baltimore. I needed to branch out. I needed to network with other people. I needed to see bigger things. I needed to see different people. I needed to see different struggles. I had to go through the struggles that I had to go to kind of realize that my brand is bigger than just a clothing line. It's a message. Moving out here was a struggle for me. I told you I have 15 brothers and sisters, and my mom, I have a wonderful support system. I have a crazy platform back at home. So it was one of those things where me being home was kind of like hindering me. So I felt like moving to LA would have been something for me to help me get out on my feet, put me in areas where, I needed to figure out how I'm going to, get from point A to point B. I can't call mommy and ask mommy to come get me. So I kind of moved out here to grow up, and in a sense, it grew me up in my business. And a lot of people probably like, wow, I've never heard this, because this is my first time telling anybody this in this form. But that was one of my main focuses, and then to start my brand as well. But I wanted to grow up first.
No, I think that's important. Something that, so I'm kind of bouncing around. So something that, because y'all, I'm coming from the perspective of like, hey, I follow on IG, I bookmark the website, like I'm saying, that kind of stuff. So I'm asking the stuff that, that piqued my interest.
That's fine. That's fine.
One of the things that you mentioned was that in terms of like your styling was not focusing necessarily on sizes and instead having like positive messages. And so I wanted to know like more about that. Because for me, as someone who definitely has had all kind of struggles with, and still, I'm still struggling with fashion in the sense that I'm very, like, my demeanor and my personality, everything is kind of very in the middle, and kind of like how I view myself, like my listeners know this, I'm kind of more kind of straddle the fence. Like I am very femme presenting, but very also have a lot of masculine energy. So I want to be able to like transition from being, I don't want to be super, super, super femme presenting, because I don't feel like I'm being my authentic self, but it's easier, honestly. It's easier for me to find a dress that's going to stretch and go over my hips. Like it's easier. It's an easier thing. And it's been kind of like less expensive too. So I've kind of gotten into this routine of, okay, well, I know what dress sizes fit me. I know, I can throw this on, and I'm trying to transition from that to the style that I really, really, envision for myself, that I feel like would be more representative of who I am overall, not just this very one part of me. So, okay, so I'll say all that to say it stood out to me, and it really resonated with me when I saw that you were talking about, oh, well, I focus more on the positive messages as opposed to sizes, because that's something that has been a struggle for me, trying to figure out, okay, what size do I wear? What should I do? And it can be very discouraging. Like I already don't like to shop. So I would just be like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm just going to go and I'll just throw on a dress, like just kind of give up.
Exactly. So that perspective is one of those things where I feel like sizes should only be for the designer, to be honest. Sizes are really only meant for the designer to know what darts to put here and what seams to put here. So that's why when I feel like, because I'm in the mass of working on some big labels, so I'm in private labeling right now. When I'm working on trying to get my label to where we can have expressions instead of sizes. Instead of the customers coming in and saying, I have to get, a size 0, or a size 7, or a size 16, or a size, 11. We can basically just say, okay, I measured you. Okay, we're going to get you this curvy. Just it's way better than saying sizes. Sizes are 10 times assaulting. Who cares about what size you wear? Who cares? It's all about how you feeling it and the expression and the way that item makes you feel. So me putting a size in that doesn't benefit you. It doesn't do anything but make you feel more assaulting when you have to keep going up sizes because something doesn't fit. That's not really your fault. That's not your fault. That's my fault. That's something that us as designers, we have to work on. You get what I'm saying? So that was my main focal point for having, and that is my main focal point for my clothing line. I
hope that that's something that catches on, because I think that's so real. I mean, I've only seen, I know like the plus size brand Torri, like they changed their sizing and they do like, but it's still numbers though. Like they don't do, so they do plus size only. So they start at like they don't say like 14, 16, 18. They'll put like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it covers certain ranges. But I still like your like kind of just how you decided to do it. I like that better. Because to me, it does make sense that the sizing and all that is something that is for the designer. So they know like, this is how much of this I need to use. This is where this needs to go. That makes sense to me. But as a consumer, if I'm like, okay, well, you know, I know that for this brand, I need to go to curvy. I need to go to this. I need to go to that. That makes sense. I mean, because even when brands try to do it, they may say, oh, we have like tall, like you can get like tall lengths. You can get the curvy, you can get the straight leg. But it's still, foundation is still the size. It's still, you know, you got to get 16, 12, whatever, as opposed to being like, okay, you're styling me. You've taken my measurements. You're like, okay, I know in P.S. I Love Me style. And I don't
exactly
picture, you know?
Exactly. Because it's left up to me. I should already know what I put in that. You know what I mean? I should already know who it should fit, because that's trial and error, and that's you as the designer. That is one of my main focal points for the female line for P.S. I Love Me. It's going to be more trickier with the male line, just because the male spec charts are completely different from females. Females are a little bit more easier because we can give a lot of stretch. Men's clothing.
And that's so rare, but it's rare because usually people say, oh, men's are easier. Men's is easier. So to say, I mean, I get why you're saying that, women's, because it does make sense. Like you can add that stretch, because Lord knows a stretch gets me through.
Exactly. Like you can add stretch to certain things and it still doesn't mess with the lay of the garment.
With the line.
With the line of the garment. If I add stretch to some men jeans, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. They could be like, okay, why these look like Lil Wayne jeans? These didn't look like Lil Wayne jeans on the thing. You know what I mean? So there's certain, like, people say men's clothes are easy. They are to an extent. I mean, they are easier to design, but easier to make, no. It's a little bit more thinking into. People think, oh yeah, she's just sewing, or oh yeah, she's just putting this on that, and it's not that easy. It's levels to everything that I'm doing, because I'm doing it in a different aspect of it. I'm looking at my fabric and saying, oh, okay, this fabric should be able to fit multiple sizes. Not just, oh, I just need a stretch. No, I need to find a fabric that's going to lay on this person, this lady, this guy, on all different shapes. Yeah.
Right. No, that makes sense to me. Okay, so you came to LA in 2016, which, I mean, actually, I think I only came here maybe 5-6 months before you did. So I've been here a little bit longer than you, but not much. So it is definitely a shift, you know, a transition coming from to the West
shift in the atmosphere.
Right. The culture is different. The cost of living, Jesus.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. So how has that adjustment been? Like, I know that's not related to fashion, but I just mean like for you as a person and for you really trying to like make that transition and get settled in a new place, because that's it. I mean, my listeners know it was rough for me. I'm just now getting to the point where I'm like, hey, I actually feel good here, because I was fucking miserable. So
okay. So I want to tell all my followers and all your followers, if you ever want to move to LA, always walk in faith and not by sight. If you walk in sight, it will always get you in trouble. To sum that up, to elaborate it a little bit more, me moving out here was a shocker. I got knocked down about twice. I was homeless. Me and my fiance lived in our car. A landlord stole $500 from us. I can get ruined that, but the thing that shocked me the most is I had somebody personally that I grew up with that kind of smacked me in my face and left me out for dead almost. If you look at my trailer and in my documentary, I'm going to elaborate a little bit more into it, and then you kind of see a little bit more on the documentary on YouTube.
I'll make sure I include the link because I did watch it, but I'll make sure in the notes, folks, they already know, like I'll include like your social media stuff and the link to that because shit was real. Y'all gonna have to. I got that, but go ahead and tell.
But just moving out to LA was at first it was all, fun and games. You get out here, you're like, I'm working, I got a little bit of money, I can find me an apartment. You find your apartment and you realize that money isn't where it's at. So now you have to have a roommate. Then you have a roommate and you realize your roommate isn't the person that they really are from when they were growing up with you.
Wow.
Leave you, go out of town, come back home, go to work, leave me completely assed out. Sorry if I'm not supposed to be cussing, but just left me ass out.
You can curse.
2 weeks later, we were homeless. I literally packed up. My mom's like, come home. I'm like, no. What am I coming home for? Not saying, going home would have been sweet. I would have had my own house. Mommy would have put me up, but going home wasn't my message. Going home wasn't my message. Going home wasn't what I came out here to do. I came out here to be a better Tormi, to be a better business owner, be a better woman. I came out here to create a business, to create a foundation, not just for me, for my family. P.S. I Love Me isn't just a clothing line. It's an LLC. I have an umbrella of companies that I am creating right now. I have a nonprofit organization because I was homeless. It's called P.S. Help for the Homeless. So I felt at that point in my life, me going home wasn't an option.
It would have gone against what you were trying to do.
It would have gone against all my beliefs. It would have it would have went against all my dreams. I would have had to go back to square one and then go home and be like, where am I move at now? No, I stayed here in LA. I fought it out for 3 months. I slept in my car. We had hotels. I didn't have any friends out here that say, oh, yo, can I use your shower? I didn't have any of that. I still to this day, I have no room for F up. Like I don't have that option. So I basically had to pick up and literally get myself together I had a 3 month span. Lord knows I was searching for apartments. I finally found an apartment. God gave me the apartment and I had been in this apartment, going on my second year now, almost. Second year, I just renewed it. Yeah. So no matter what you go through, like I went to work every day. Nobody knew I was homeless. Nobody knew. Like I would go to work, clock in, do what I had to do, go home, sleep in my car, call my mom. We had to do what we had to do, but nobody knew. And I fought and I fought and I fought. And still to this day, like I'm still fighting. I'm still fighting demons. Believe it or not, I'm still pissed at what that girl did to me. But I feel like, fighting her.
That's a rough thing to grow. You know what I mean? Like you changed somebody's life in a negative way when you do something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's another level.
But I released it. I prayed on it. I pray, I wish her the best of luck in life. I'm not going to dwell on it because if you dwell on it, it's not going to do nothing but knock my blessings. So I live and I learn, and I'm in a better state now. I have my own apartment. I have my own car. Me and my fiance both working, and we have P.S. I Love Me. I think I'm doing pretty darn good. I'm way better than I was a year and a half ago.
Right. That's for sure. And that's the thing. It's like people never know. A lot of times folks may count you out or they may just underestimate what you're capable of. And it's like, it's a good thing to not even get caught up in what, in other people's issues. Because ultimately that person, even though it definitely had an impact on you, the way that they did things and them basically just kind of like abandoning you, just dipping out, says a lot about their character and about who they really are as a person. And so instead of like getting, you know, super caught up on that, it's like, okay, well, I still got to live my life and move forward. And we will, over the years too, you know, even if you know somebody for a long time, like you will learn people change, you know, people, you know, things happen. And a lot of times, especially when you've grown up with somebody, they're not the same, like, they're not going to necessarily be the same person that you knew all those years ago. I've had to learn that definitely the hard way. So, you know, but.
Well, we both play the devil on both sides. You know, we both, I'm not saying that I'm 100% perfect because I'm not. We're all human. But at the end of the day, I felt like there is a time in life where you have to woman up. And I've been womaning up for about a good 5 years now.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, when are everybody else going to woman up to what you're doing? Like, you have to woman up because that's the only way you're going to succeed. Like, you have to apologize. You have to fix it. You have to go through it. And I feel like just, you know, a lot of people run from their issues. And running, I swear, our East Coast people, they love to run. They love to run thinking it's going to fix something. And it's not. And they always end back at the same place. You have to kind of conquer and realize what you're doing before you run.
Go away. Like you can run, you can keep running, but it's just not going to make it go away. Like, and then after a while, you can only run for so long because at some point it's going to catch up to you. I mean, you just can't. And so it makes more sense to just be able to face it. And that's part of growth and maturity. I mean, the reality is everybody doesn't get to that place at the same time. So for some people, you know, they may be in their 20s when they realize it. For some people, they may be in their 40s. It's that run, you know, that journey looks different for everybody. And I mean, in that kind of situation, I'm grateful that, like, I'm 30. So I'm grateful that there are a lot of things that I know now that it didn't take me until I was 50. You know, I'm like, okay, at least I live my life differently, you know, as opposed to perpetuating the same issues. But something, okay, so this is not related to fashion, but
that's fine.
Because, so you said that you have a fiance. So did you all, no, I'm married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I moved out here. So my wife is originally from LA, the LA area. We met in Atlanta. I mean, I'm from Atlanta. We met there, got together there, everything. But she was saying that, at some point, I know I want to go back to California and live there as an adult. You know, I want to have that experience. So we made the decision to relocate. She relocated first, and then I followed. You know, I met her out here after finishing at least in Atlanta, and been here. So that, in the midst of, you know, we've been working, we've been doing other stuff. We both are trying to, you know, be better. And then I started doing like the podcast, and I'm trying to kind of take that to the next level. So that in and of itself, it's, for one, relationships are their own journey. And then and a business, you know, like doing that and like a business and trying to, and I mean, I've been like kind of doing some type of side hustle or something since we've been together. So she's accustomed to like really being by my side through all my endeavors, like, you know, the modeling, the photography, all the stuff I've done. So how has that been, like, just, you know, because you're having your relationship and everything in the midst of all this other stuff going on. Y'all still going to work, you're still doing this stuff, but you're also chasing your, you know, these other goals. So what role basically has your relationship played in that?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of background on my relationship that a lot of people don't know. Me and Chrissy's been together for 6.5 years, been engaged for 6. For us, it was a little bit easy. I don't want to brag in that sense. I want to be more humble about it. So it was easier in the sense of when we first met, Chrissy was the breadwinner. She was the workaholic. Chrissy was working 2 or 3 jobs. Like, Chrissy was working 2 or 3 jobs, and I was just sitting at home watching my goddaughter. You know, I wasn't working, and this was back when I was, 22? Yeah, I was young. This is back in my 20s. So when I first met her, she had kind of like seeing her as a workaholic, it got me, to get up. And I was always designing clothes. I was always sewing, but I wasn't doing it to a extent of where I was doing it to selling. I was making stuff for what I wanted to do. Like when I wanted to go out to the club, I'll make me something to wear. That's how I was 6 years ago. And throughout this time, we were able to develop our niche of how we are going to kind of grow this relationship together, because it's weird. She went to school for telecommunications. I went to school for fashion. They work together, but they don't. And at first, I didn't understand. I was like, she's going to school for TV and I'm going to school for fashion. Yeah, they go together because you need somebody to style you for television. But she didn't go to school to be the person in front of in front of the mic. She went to school to be the person behind the camera. So 6 years ago, social media was not popping like it was now.
Right.
So
it's different now.
It's completely different now. So we didn't understand our niche to how, we were going to kind of, coincide our careers with our relationship. So we just basically worked separately. She did communications. I was just working in fashion. And that's how we coincide. We came home, we paid the bills, we were traveling. And moving to LA was my idea. And it was my idea to a sense where I was like, I want to move to LA. And she looked at me and was like, okay. I was like, serious? She was like, okay. Hey. And it's weird.
And
it was my
having, like someone who is support. I mean, I wish I could honestly say that was me, because it absolutely was not. My wife was like, I want to move back to LA. I was like, hell to the no. Like, I was not here for it at first. And then I was like, it took me some time to come around. So props to her for actually being like, hey, all right. Cause I was just like, I mean, my foundation is in Atlanta, my support system, my following, like even the people who originally started supporting my podcast, it was all East Coast. So that was what I was used to. And I don't have any outside of my wife's family. Like,
I feel you.
My folks aren't out here, so I'm just like, I don't know about that. So, but to have that person who is going to be supportive, I mean, we went through a similar thing of kind of trying to figure out how can we, kind of bridge that gap and bring some things together, because we both are kind of working separately. I always had some kind of side hustle operating. She would kind of try to get involved in a way, but I mean, she went to school for like business. I went to school for counseling, but I always like doing all this creative stuff. Mm-hmm. So, we kind of went through that same process of like, hey, how can we kind of like work together? Kind of toss ideas around and stuff like that, and try to figure out what works and what doesn't work, basically. Yeah. So we don't like work together in a traditional sense. I mean, but we do like check in with each other and like get each other's feedback. Like she listens to the podcast. She's been on the podcast, but she listens to it, gives me her feedback. She has a business thing that she's starting now. She gets my feedback. We give each other suggestions and stuff like that. And we found that was kind of like the best way for us to navigate it. Cause we did try something like together, like a really kind of like start like a business together, but it was kind of hard we work fine together, but it was just trying to make those things kind of go together was difficult.
I get you.
It makes sense when you say like, oh, well, we were kind of trying to figure out how to, align what we're doing and kind of work together. So I feel that, but my bad, continue.
No, you're fine. So like the way we found out that we could work at first is because, okay, so let me go back a little bit. So when Chrissy told me that, she wanted to move to LA, I was like, for real? She was like, yeah. I was like, okay. 3 months later, she bought the LLC to my business. No, this is the funny part. The day before, we had gotten into this huge argument. I don't know why. I think I was just having the time of my month. You know how all women have. Oh. And I had completely went off, and I was like, you just don't care about me.
I'm just not here for it. You were like, I'm not here for it.
Yeah, like I just had a complete meltdown that day, and I don't understand why. And I went to work. She went to work. I came home. She emailed me, like, did you check your email? I was like, no, I'm checking my email for. She was like, because you got a LLC to PS 11. I pay for the name, the patent, and the trademark. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So at that point, it made me realize she sees so much more into me than I see into myself, because this has been something that I had been talking about I was going to do, but I never could really sit down to figure out how I was doing it, because I was always trying to make money, to make moves, to make sure that I could always meet up to Chrissy. And Chrissy was like, you ain't got to meet up to me. Just do what I want you to do.
Do what you do.
Follow your dream. Do what you've been doing and do you. So that was something that literally that woke me up. So then it's funny because she moved to LA 3 months before I did. She got the job.
Did that too. She transferred her job and moved before I came.
Well, Chrissy didn't transfer. She quit. She quit AT&T, flew out here 3 times for 3 interviews at Enterprise and got the job. So she had to move out here 3 months before I did. And I was still hesitant with up into my last week before I left. Whole time, it was my idea. It was my idea to move to LA, and I'm
like, you the one who said you want to move, and she, supporting you. She's like, all right, let's do it.
To go back to what I was saying is, I come from a huge family. Like, my grandma had 5 kids. My mom is the oldest. My dad had 10 kids. 8 are still alive. My mom has 2, plus she had 3, and then she, adopted other kids. So I have a blended family. Like, my stepfather has 4 kids outside of, my mom's marriage. That was before my mom. So my family was so huge. So for me to leave all my friends that were my true friends and come out to LA was like, Tormi, you leaving your whole family. Are you really going to do this?
Leaving everybody. I'm just like, oh, snap. My whole support system, all my friends, all my family. Okay.
And it was hard. And the only person I had was my god sister that was that I was staying with at the time until I was able to move into an apartment. And then she had moved back to Vegas on me. So I was just like, okay, I'm really lonely. Like, so my first 2.5 years was rocky as crap. And then, like, for me and Chrissy, we have always, like, literally, she has always been my support system. And every pop-up shop, she's there.
I'm like, I'm all over the social media.
Right?
Like,
she record me right now.
Nice.
She might got me on live, but like because she went to school for communications.
Right.
And anything that's dealing with social media, anything that's dealing with anything, photography, the YouTube, the documentaries, the whole documentary is for her. It's not for me. It's for her because she went to school for communications. Chrissy wants to be a producer one day. So I'm like, okay, let's produce a documentary.
Okay.
So
look,
basically,
I might have to circle on back to her.
Contact me.
have to chat. No, that's dope because that's actually what not be a producer, but communications was my first thing. Like I wanted to do radio, which is why I'm doing the podcast now. But I did like radio when I went to college. I did, and then they would have like the little school TV station and stuff. I did that throughout school. I knew I wanted to do something in like broadcast journalism. Like I used to write for newspapers, all that kind of stuff. But radio really was like my love because I love music. So it's like being able to, the good thing about for you two is like being able to be with someone where you can support each other, like not just, just encouragement, but also like in a very practical way. Like because she has that background, there are certain stuff she's able to do, and she knows you and she knows your vision, so she can come at it from that perspective too, as opposed to a stranger doing it. Like if she's on, then she's gonna handle it differently than somebody who doesn't know you, who's just putting some footage together. You know what I mean?
Exactly, and that's what I think is so great about our balance. Because when it comes to social media, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not even on my own, like my personal Instagram. All my friends are like, you never post. And I'm like, because I'm on my business page. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because I'm trying to understand it. Like, I'm trying to get this niche. Because, I mean, I'm down with social media, but I'm not down with the ads. And, I'm trying to get my following up. And I'm really trying to understand the dynamics of how should I make this look and how should I make that look. And Chrissy's like, why are you doing that? I'm here. I got you. I do it. And I'm just like, well, she's like, you go do you go style, you go make some clothes. I'll deal with all of the social media back end. And like, that's a blessing. If you have somebody like you never know, your girlfriend might have a crazy niche for social media, or like she might be able to do all the business background that you don't want to do. And with me, like, I'm good with the business. I'm good with the brand. I know my brand, and I'm good with designing for my brand. But Chrissy always backed me up with a great contract. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so it's all like you can do it, but you can't always do it yourself. And I realized if she wasn't my girlfriend, she'll be my business partner. So either way, is a win-win situation. And if you have a partner that's willing to back you, if you can use that free resource while you got it, or if you ain't got to pay them, just
you pay them in love.
Exactly. I tell her real quick, I pay you no mind, boo. Thank you.
Dang, don't do her like that. Dang.
I know
it's good to have that. I mean, I think that too. It does add to a relationship when you know that the person that you're with really, really supports you, not just in kind of like an abstract way, not just like, oh, well, you know, in a dismissive way, like, oh, I support you, do your thing, not like that, but in a, hey, I'm willing to, for real support you. Like, I'm willing to come through with resources. I'm willing to, like, I was telling my listeners for Christmas, like, my wife basically upgraded my little podcasting situation. So she got me like a Chromebook, a microphone.
I seen that. I like that picture too.
I was like, oh, so you for real support, you know. And I mean, she's always been supportive like that over the course of our relationship, you know, we try to support each other's interests and stuff like that. But it's nothing compares to, like, you know, knowing that, hey, this is the person that I'm with, I'm sharing my life with, and also they very much support me, you know. So that's, to me, I just think it makes the relationship better, because you know that you have someone in your corner, like, who, not just because, oh, well, they're with me, but also because they legitimately believe in what you're doing.
Exactly. They see it. And it's weird because what Chrissy sees is the same thing my mom sees. And when I see my mom and Chrissy look at my work, Chrissy's my fiance, or when I see like my mom and Chrissy look at like the Instagrams or the YouTubes or my pop-up shops, their eyes is just like, wow. And they like, I look at Chrissy like, are you my girlfriend? Or are you like my mom? Like, what is this? Like, why are you and my mom on the same page when it comes to my artwork? But
that's a good thing.
It is a good thing, but it's like, should not be like this. And like with me, like, I'm so nonchalant when it comes to certain things. Don't get me wrong, I have a great personality, but when it comes to people like winning me over for me, I have so much of a high expectation. People like, oh my God, your brand is so great. And I'm like, thank you. You know, I'm just, you know, I think I can be greater. You know, but it's not in a bad way. It's
though, you know, because you're looking at it as the creator versus, even though they are close to you, they're still, to an extent, on the outside looking in. So it's different they get a different perspective. And that's how I feel about the podcast. Like, when my wife told me she listens to the podcast, like, when I first started, and I was like, for real? Like, you live with me, you hear me all the time, like, you still listen to the podcast? And she's like, yeah. So for her to give me that feedback from the outside looking in, but still being someone who's close to me, it's just a different perspective versus me. I'm looking at it like, well, you know me, like, you know,
exactly.
Like, it's not as a big deal. But even people who know me, like, one of my close friends is like, oh, girl, I just went back and listened to this episode again. I'm like, you talk to me regularly. You ain't tired of hearing my voice? And she's like, girl, no, you know, it just gives you a different perspective, because if you're a creator, like, you really can get in that place where you're kind of like, you're so used to being immersed in your own creation and what you're doing that you're not looking at it from the same perspective as someone from the outside looking in, you know?
Yeah.
So like, oh, it's not a big deal, because that's me. I'm like, it ain't a big deal. And they're like, you wrong. You know? So,
right. They're like, oh my God, that is so dope. And I'm like, thank you.
Like, it could be better. They're like, you know, It's perspective.
Yeah, like, people like, oh my, like, my mom's like, that bag, like, because I sew handbags. So my mom's like, that bag is so nice. And I'm like, I like it, but I wish I would have added that to that. My mom's like, it's fine this way, Tormi. And I'm just like, okay, sorry.
I know. Then it's like they start looking at you like, excuse you, don't. I mean, I understand because I'm the same way when it comes to people, to other people. So, if I see, oh, my friend is, like let's say they're doing photography or something, and I'm like, oh my God, those photos are so bomb. And they're like, oh, the lighting could have been, and I'm like, excuse you, don't talk about my friend,
Exactly.
different perspective, but it's awesome to be able to have that kind of support system. Like, I feel like that's one of the most valuable resources that you can have. So, but before I wrap up, because I'm looking at the time, I'll let people know where they can find you on social media. So like the Instagram, your website. I'm going to also include it in the show notes so people can, go to the links, but so they'll know. And then what's coming up for PS I Love Me, like for this year? Like, do you have pop-up shops? Do you have events, or, what can we be looking forward to?
So, I'm going to answer the first question. You can find me on Instagram. It's PS I Love Me 87. My website is psiloveme87.com. And my Facebook is Tormi Coleman /PS I Love Me. I don't remember the Twitter. I don't really get on Twitter too much. I'm not a Twitter fan. If somebody can teach me how to use Twitter, I'm down. But it's just like,
that's what your fiance is for. Your fiance got to come in and, and
exactly. She's in charge of the Twitter. What's the Twitter?
I got to remember the password.
See, she don't remember the password to Twitter. See, we're terrible with Twitter.
Y'all got to get it. We're going to circle back on that, and we'll include it.
We can circle back on the Twitter. I'll email it to you. But to be honest, I'm going to learn Twitter. I just need somebody to teach me Twitter. We're
going to work on that. So if not, because I actually really like Twitter. It's probably my favorite. But I also act a fool on Twitter. But yeah, I'll have to, even if I have to show you, because it really can be beneficial, to kind of put some stuff out there, especially letting folks know where you're going to be.
Okay.
All that. Yeah.
Well, I kind of got scarred with Twitter because back when Twitter first came out, my mom had a Twitter before me.
Oh, no.
And my mom's like, everybody who knows my mom, she's like so savvy when it comes to social media. She was being like a Twitter gangster. And I was like, you know what? I'm not hanging out with you.
You're like, I'm not ready for this. I did not consent to seeing all this.
Like, she's not a bad Twitter. Like a bad gangster. But like if somebody says something, like, she'll probably tweet like Donald Trump sucks or something like that. Like, my mom goes ham.
She's about that life.
She has no filter.
I think I like your mom. I don't even know her. I'm like, I think I like your mama. She's about that life. Like, I said what I said.
Yo, she's about that life in a respectful way, though. Like, in a respectful way, but like, she'll let you know on Twitter. So I think that's kind of where the scarring came from. But I'm gonna go back.
2019. Yes, I Love Me on Twitter.
Oh wow, Ooh, sorry. You can go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just saying that's one. Hopefully in 2019 we'll see you more on Twitter. But so do you know as of now, like, kind of some things that are coming ahead for this year, or like any goals or anything you're trying to do?
I have a couple things in planning. I have a couple of projects. I'm currently working on, doing a fashion show with a couple of my friends that I have met throughout the year. I am working on a collaboration with my god sister. We're going to be doing some collabs on that as well. I have some bigger things I can't really talk about yet. I have to sign some disclosure forms for, but I have about 2 or 3 pop-up shops I'm doing. I am actually going to have a couple of my own this year, and I'm going to be bringing out tons of product. Right now we're in the midst of the planning stages for the product, of seeing what lines we're going to do and how we're going to place them and name them. And hopefully by the beginning of October, I can drop my children's line. I'm working on that as well. So keep my fingers crossed.
Speaking into existence, it's going to happen.
Black Radical Queer Podcast is all about intersectionality and Black queer folks sharing our stories on our own terms. We navigate an array of identities, and BRQ is an outlet where we can see the spectrum of those identities reflected, explored, and celebrated. Black Radical Queer is a ManeHustle Media podcast hosted by Javia Nicole, produced and edited by Charmaine Johnson. Music is by Publicity. You can find us on social media by looking up Black Rad Queer as BLK RAD QWR. We are on Facebook as well as Instagram and Twitter. Same handle regardless, at Black Rad Queer. BLK RAD QWR. We also have a Facebook discussion group that's just called BRQ Discussion Group, and you can also listen wherever you get your podcasts. So we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, Google Play, all those types of things, and we have our home base that's on Libsyn, so you can listen on there as well. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure you come on back around next week to see what we have for you. And all right, y'all, I'm out.
ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.